Hi, I'm Johnny from ultimatepapermache.com, and today I want to make an owl mask. Actually, I didn't get the whole thing done yet, and so this is just the first part of this series. We're going to be finishing it up probably in 2 more videos. It's going to take a little while to get this guy done. The reason I wanted to do it is because my second book in the Utah O'Brien Minnesota Mysteries series is now online, and I wanted to celebrate. And the way I decided to do it is by making the owl mask that got my main character in so much trouble in the first book. I'm building this owl mask over a pasta bowl that I've had for a long time, and then I used the roundness of the bowl to make sure that the face doesn't end up being flat. I'm going to show you here. I don't know if you can see it or not. One of the biggest problems with making a sculpted portrait of any face, whether it's human or animal, is that if you're using a photograph for your model, the sculpture ends up flat if you're not really, really careful. That's a really big problem for me. And so I kind of cheated by using this bowl underneath. You could also crumple up some newspapers and put them in a plastic bag, or just make a rounded form and start with that. I thought it was just easier to use the bowl since I had one. I also made a real quick sketch of the owl. This is not a pattern. It's a great horned owl, and I'm not using it as a pattern the way I do a lot of my 4-legged animals. I know you guys are used to having me give you patterns to start out with on the inside of your sculptures, and this is not what this is for. They're not even the same size. But what I wanted to do was make sure that I got the basic shapes. When you're looking at photographs and you go online to Google image search, you can find hundreds of photographs of great horned owl faces, or any kind of owl you want. But every photograph is a different owl. And so they're all different shapes and different colors. They're all in a different position. And it's really easy to get confused by all of the information that you've got ahead of you. So what I did was I simplified it down to just the basic shapes, and that's what I worked on today. Now I'm also using this plastilina clay. It's a Sargent's plastilina. I like it because it's cheap and it's also really soft, so it's really fast to work with. You can make it even faster if you want to warm it up just a little bit, but you don't really need to. It's plenty soft enough, and the soft clay will go over your basic form really easy. And it might not hold really fine details like a really high quality oil-based clay would, but you're going to be putting paper mache over it anyway, so it doesn't matter. So as far as I'm concerned, cheap is good. Now let me show you how I got to this point. This is basically just a sketch of the owl's face. We'll finish up the final sculpture and the paper mache and the painting and finishing in the next videos.
I covered my pasta bowl with some aluminum foil just so that I didn't have to wash the oil off the bowl when I get all done. And then I start forming the basic shapes around the edges of the bowl with some noodles of clay and filling them in. Basically what I've done now is outline the ruff of feathers that goes out from his cheek, and I've also defined the lower edge of the mask. I don't want it to go all the way to the bottom of the bowl because an owl's face is not perfectly round. Then I added some crumpled aluminum foil to the top of the bowl. I didn't press it down or squish it together real hard because I want to be able to continue shaping that. We need to have some depressions for the eyes, and if you leave the aluminum foil fairly loosely crumpled, you can still change it. After that, I added some flat pieces of the plastilina clay. I ran the clay through a pasta making machine, you know, one of those little hand cranked ones. You don't have to do that. I just happened to have one sitting around, so I went ahead and used it. You obviously would never want to use it for anything else. And I used a knife just to flatten it out. And then I looked at some of the photographs that I had up just to double check to see if I was getting it sort of close. I decided that I wanted a little bit of the ruff of feathers that usually shows up underneath the beak, so I added a little point down there. And I used a sharp pointed tool just to sketch out where I'm going to want to put those eyes and the beak and just the basic shapes that I'm going to be filling out. Pressing down there, as you can see, so that there'll be room for the eyes. The little wooden buttons that I decided to use for the eyes are not big enough. I'm going to be changing those out, probably with some the styrofoam balls that I have on hand, or you can just make balls of the right size out of clay. I did notice later when I turned this upside down again that one of those eyeballs is in the wrong place, so I did change those later. And then I start adding more clay in between the eyes. We need to have a nice rounded forehead. The top of the owl's head is round. The outside edges are not, so that needed to be built up quite a lot. Then I added a little bit more clay for the lower eyelids and started working on the cheeks. There's a lot of changes that are going to have to be made to this guy. It's actually easier to see some of the changes that are needed now that I'm looking at it in the photograph. Sometimes you really need to back away from a sculpture and look at it in a different way. Take a photograph of it, put it in front of a mirror and look at it that way. Just turn it upside down. There's a lot of different ways that you can get a different perspective on a sculpture so that you can actually see the things that you kind of miss while you're working on it. Now it's still a sketch, but we want to get it as close as possible. So I can see that the ruff is too wide. I'm almost comfortable with the beak, but not quite. It doesn't come out quite far enough, so I'll be working on that. Just want to cut off a little bit of that clay. As long as it's still clay, it's really easy to make changes. Once you start adding the paper mache, it's going to be pretty hard. So just starting out with the right shape really makes a big difference. Once the basics are right, then you can do a lot of work on the details. Like I said, getting those eyes the right size, even moving them around if necessary, changing the shape of the beak. Making the final changes is a lot easier once you actually have that basic sketch to start with.
So that's all I have for you today. We get to see how it progresses in the next couple of videos. And in the meantime, I hope that you go check out my new cozy mystery, A Lonely Way to Die. It's on Amazon. I'll put a link to it down below. I'll see you in the next video, and come visit me at ultimatepapermache.com. I'd love to see you there.